So welcome. Today we did about alkaloid, which is an interesting secondary metabolite, which is very important for pharmacological effects, and they are actually nitrogen-containing compounds. So when you come to their definition, any non-peptidic or non-nucleotidic nitrogenous secondary metabolite is known as an alkaloid. And most of the alkaloid having nitrogen in their basic skeleton. For example, if you take quinine and morphine, they are a best example of an alkaloid having nitrogen in their basic structures. Not only is quinine and morphine, nicotine, clavulanic acid, conine, strychnine, spartamine, and lysergic acid are all a nitrogen containing compound, so they are a class of an alkaloid. So this alkaloid is nitrogen naturally occurring compounds that contain nitrogen, and many have heterocyclic ring as a part of their structures, and mostly found in a plant, and most of the alkaloid are physiologically active or pharmacologically very important in medicines, and their nature is basic or alkaline due to unshared pair of electron on nitrogen, and this compound is or alkaloid is get the name from this alkaline. So those nitrogen compounds that are found in all organisms, example amino acid and nucleic acid, are not actually considered as an alkaloid. This implies that every compound having a nitrogen is not alkaloid, but every alkaloid have a nitrogen. That means. So these alkaloids have one or more nitrogen, typically as a primary, secondary, or tertiary amine, and this usually confers basicity to the alkaloid, facilitating their isolation and purification, since water-soluble salt can be formed in the presence of the mineral acid. There are also an alkaloid which are actually neutral. So these alkaloid mostly they are basic in nature because of the lone pair of electron on the nitrogen moiety. So the name alkaloid is in fact derived from this word alkali, which means that base or basic in nature. So the nitrogen atom in an alkaloid originates from an amino acid, and in general the carbon skeleton of the particular amino acid precursor is largely retained intact in the alkaloid structure, though the carboxylic acid carbon is often lost through decarboxylation, and the end circle compound that having nitrogen moiety is known as an alkaloid. Therefore, this alkaloid actually originated from an amino acid as a precursor and a non-amino acid precursor as well. So most of the alkaloid that originate from this amino acid is known as true alkaloid, and an alkaloid that start from non-amino acid precursor is actually pseudo alkaloids. So when you see the biosynthesis pathway of this alkaloid are structurally diverse family of nitrogen containing base. A unifying feature is the biosynthetic origin of the majority from the limited number of amino acids actually. So alkaloid may be classified into those derived from lysine or ornithine, phenylalanine or tyrosine, tryptophan, and other enzymes and other amino acids that mean, and most of alkaloid that originate from this amino acid is known as a true alkaloid. So in addition, there is also an alkaloid such as steroidal alkaloid, in which the nitrogen is introduced after the final carbon skeleton has been formed, and such an alkaloid is known as pseudo alkaloids. So the basic amino acid ornithine and the lysine are the precursor of pyrrolidine and the piperidine ring that are found in the number of alkaloids. So an important aspect of this biosynthesis is the role of the imine ion in the managed type of condensation reaction. So the most common amino acid from which alkaloids are derived is known as ornithine, lysine, and the tryptophan. These are the most important enzymes that are used for what? The biosynthesis of what? An alkaloid. And the tyrosine and the phenylalanine, most of the aromatic amino acid can also be act as the source of this an alkaloid, nicotinic acid, and anthralinic acid also at another precursors for an alkaloid. So in addition, there are also an alkaloid such as steroidal alkaloid, in which the nitrogen is introduced after the final carbon skeleton has been formed, and such alkaloid is known as pseudo alkaloid is sometimes used to distinguish this group. So the word pseudo means false, so pseudo alkaloid is a false alkaloid. What it means false alkaloid is that this alkaloid incorporate nitrogen as the last stage of the biosynthesis pathway rather than the true alkaloid which having nitrogen moiety at the start of the reaction. So an alpha amino acid is used to make an alkaloid: tryptophan, phenylalanine, tyrosine, lysine, and ornithine. These all can be used for the biosynthesis of an alkaloid. So let me see one by one. An alkaloid derived from ornithine. Ornithine have two amine functional group at alpha and delta, and the first amine at alpha position can be removed through by the process known as deamination. Then after cyclization can be takes place so as to produce what? An alkaloid. So ornithine contain both an delta and alpha amino group, and it is the nitrogen from the former group which is incorporated into the alkaloid structure along with the carbon chain except for the carboxyl group. So have a look here. Here the PLP pyridoxal phosphate can used for what? Decarboxylation, and now at the first step decarboxylation can be takes place, meaning the removal of acid functional group in the form of carbon dioxide. During that time putrescine can be formed. Now alkylation can be takes place by using one of the nitrogen moiety because of lone pairs, and this alkylated nitrogen or putrescine can be undergo oxidative deamination so as to produce an aldehyde. Now since an aldehyde or a carbon of an aldehyde is electrophile, and as a lone pair of nitrogen act as a nucleophile, there is a cyclization reaction so as to produce what? An amino intermediate. It is this amino intermediate that used for what? The generation of pyrrolidine alkaloid. So now the iminium salt or an intermediate can be reacted with malonyl CoA, which can be used as extender unit so as to generate this intermediate. Again, this intermediate can undergo oxidation, and finally it produces what? It produces what? An alkaloid. So this one is the biosynthesis pathway, how alkaloid can be generated from ornithine. Yeah, this also an alkaloid. Maybe different secondary modification can be undergo so as to produce what? The last structure of the alkaloid. So again an alkaloid derived from lysine. Now the same principle can be undergo with of ornithine. Now PLP used for decarboxylation, and the cadaverine can be formed, and this cadaverine can be undergo oxidative deamination so as to form an aldehyde functional group. Now cyclization between electrophile nucleophile can be takes place. Piperidine can be formed, and this piperidine maybe you have to add was acetyl CoA so as to produce different class of amino acid. At the final stage of the biosynthesis pathway, you have to produce what? Anaferin, which is an alkaloid. So you have to see the biosynthetic pathway, and you have to know the role of different coenzyme as well as enzyme, and how the process can be undergo. For example, if you use intermediate peletrine, this intermediate peletrine can be converted to N-methyl peletrine by using SAM. SAM here can be used for the source of methyl, and the methylation of nitrogen can be takes place. So you have to know the role of PLP here, the role of SAM here, the role of water or hydrolysis here, and different enzyme, coenzyme, and the cofactor can be used for the biosynthesis of an alkaloid as well. So an alkaloid derived from tryptophan. Now tryptophan also an amino acid. Again the acid functional group first eliminated in the form of carbon dioxide by using PLP. Then this tryptamine can be undergo methylation on the nitrogen moiety by using 2 molecules of SAM so as to produce this intermediate. Now this intermediate can be undergo hydration so as to produce PCO lysine. It's also an alkaloid, and also this tryptophan can also be undergo a reaction with secogenin so as to produce what? Strictocidin, which is an alkaloid having a glucose moiety attached on the structure. So the same is true different anti-cancer drug, vincristine and vinplastin, which can be obtained from Catharanthus rosas, can also be an alkaloid classes, which can be biosynthesis by this principle. Same is true vindesin and anhydrovinplastin. This all can be what? An alkaloid having a nitrogen as a basic structure. So the next one is an alkaloid derived from tyrosine. Tyrosine is an aromatic amino acid. This tyrosine can be undergo transamination by PLP so as to form this intermediate. Again, decarboxylation by PLP also undergo to produce this intermediate. Now this intermediate can be undergo oxidation as well as decarboxylation so as to produce these two intermediate. Again, these two intermediate can be react to each other so as to produce what? Reticulin. Reticulin is an alkaloid which can be generated by this tyrosine as a precursor, which can be supported or mediated by different secondary modifications, especially by some as well as oxidation. So this one is how the biosynthesis of an alkaloid can be takes place by using what? Important amino acid as a precursors. The same is true here. Oxidative coupling can also be used for what? The creation of reticulin and boldin. These all are an amino acid, an alkaloid that can be obtained from what? Tyrosine as a precursors. So the same is true. Alkaloid derived from phenylalanine also there. This phenylalanine also an aromatic amino acid which can be used for what? The alkaloid generation. Do you know khat? Khat is the especially it is known here, and this khat can have what? An alkaloid in its leaf, and so as to having what the hallucination effects on the human. So these charts also have what? An alkaloid which can be originated from phenylalanine. So chart or Cataidulis family of Celastraceae is a flowering plant native to tropical East Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, and this chart contains an alkaloid called cathinone, which is an amphetamine-like stimulant which causes what? Excitement, loss of appetite, and euphoria. In 1980, actually, the World Health Organization classified chat as a drug of abuse that produces what? A mild to moderate psychological dependence. Therefore, this chart have an alkaloid called cathinone. This cathinone cathinone is an amphetamine-like stimulant which causes what? Excitement and a loss of appetite as well as euphoria. That's why the World Health Organization can be what? Classifies this chart as a drug of abuse actually. Since it can yield what? It can bring what? A mild to moderate psychological dependence. Nicotinic acid. And actually this nicotinic acid can be found on the tobacco. So smoking cigarette is also another cause of what? Consuming this an alkaloid, which is what? Nicotine. So nicotinic acid can be used to what? Biosynthesis anaplastin by using different phenomena mediated by secondary modification using what? NADPH. So this nicotinic acid can be used to 1,2-dihydroxypyridine, and this 1,2-dihydroxypyridine can undergo imine tautomerization. Tautomerization means simply the intramolecular movement of hydrogen, that it means to produce what? 1,4-dihydropyridine. It is 1,4-dihydropyridine that's used for what? Producing this anatapine. This anatapine also an alkaloid that can be what? Having an nicotine as a precursor. There is also an alkaloid derived from antranilic acid, and this antranilic acid can be used for producing an alkaloid by passing through different biosynthesis pathway. The same is true, there is an alkaloid that can be obtained from antranilic-CoA, which can be reacted with malonyl-CoA so as to produce 4-hydroxyquinoline. This 4-hydroxyquinoline can be undergo a secondary modification by dimethyl allyl pyrophosphate, which is the source of prenyl group, and then prenylation can be undergo not only prenylation, some also used for methylation, and finally we produce what? Dictamine and sciminamine, which is an alkaloid also. This also an alkaloid classes of compound or secondary metabolites. The same is true here. Different reaction can be used for the formation of an alkaloid, maybe Claisen reaction, managed condensation, and different types of reaction can be undergo for the production of these alkaloids. Here this show the biosynthesis of pipicolic acid. This pipicolic acid can be again biosynthesis from this amino acid, and it can be followed by different process like transamination and also reduction, also their hydration as well, to produce what? This pipicolic acid, which is also an alkaloid. So alkaloid derived from amination reaction. So the majority of the alkaloid are derived from amino acid precursors by the process that incorporate into the final structure the nitrogen atom together with the amino group, amino acid carbon skeleton, or the large number of proportion of it. So many alkaloids do not conform with this description, however, and are synthesized primarily from non-amino acid precursors, with the nitrogen atom being inserted into the structure at the relatively late stage of the biosynthesis. Such type of an alkaloid that can be having a nitrogen or incorporating nitrogen at the last stage of the biosynthesis pathway is known as pseudo-alkaloid. So these are all about an alkaloid. So thank you for watching, and I'm sure that you have to understand something from this alkaloid, but overall what you have to know from this alkaloid is that alkaloid is any secondary metabolite that have a nitrogen, and this alkaloid can be classified either true alkaloid or pseudo alkaloid. True alkaloid is the one that can be mainly generated or biosynthesis from ornithine, lysine, tryptophan, tyrosine, and phenylalanine as intermediate or amino acid. And pseudo alkaloid is the alkaloid that incorporate nitrogen at the last stage of the reaction and mainly originate from non-precursor, non-nitrogen containing precursors first. So as you see, this conning can be synthesis from acetate and malonate first. There is no nitrogen in this structure, and but finally we incorporate this nitrogen at the last stage of the reaction. Therefore, such type of alkaloid is known as a pseudo alkaloid, and this alkaloid is having a basic nature because of the lone pair on the nitrogen, and the name alkaloid is also derived from this alkali name. And alkaloid is spectacular in pharmacological effect. The word spectacular means that it is very important medicinal value because of their pharmacological effects. Therefore, these are all about alkaloids. So read it more about alkaloid so as to understand what is alkaloid, the class of alkaloid, and the biosynthesis pathway of alkaloid, as well as the extraction mechanism, especially as a basic extraction of alkaloid from natural product is very important for you. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and the link as well as comment the channel so as to get the hot tutorial video for you. Until the next video, I wish best time for you. Thank you for watching.